In a quiet Australian home, grief cuts deeper than any knife. 17-year-old Andy and his visually impaired sister Piper are thrust into the care of Laura, a grieving foster mother. But Laura isn't just mourning, she's preparing a ritual. Directed by Danny and Michael Filippo, this A24 horror uses practical effects and visceral dread to question how far would a mother go to reclaim her child. In a house full of secrets, cult VHS tapes, occult circles, and a sinister child named Oliver, no one is safe. Laura's grief spirals into madness. Lives will be sacrificed. Bloodlines will be broken. Bring her back, where mourning becomes monstrous and home becomes horror. Wah, wah, wah.
Wow. People, they really like that one.
They did, yeah. Do you guys want Australian Toast to come back?
Toast has been working on his accents nonstop since the last episode, so.
I did watch at least 3 tutorials on how to do an Australian accent. And the only thing that I learned out of all 3 of them was any word that ends in A-R, E-R, U-R, I-R, whatever. You don't say the R, you just go,
Oh, really?
Like river. You don't say river, you say river.
River.
Yeah. Oh. River. And it's a short at the end.
River.
River. Oh, I'm just going down to the river.
That's pretty good.
Crikey. Crikey, there's a crocodile under there. Not bad.
He's been saying this in his car for the last 3 hours.
I have a control phrase for every accent. If I don't get the control phrase right, the accent's not right.
But if you can't tell, we are reviewing an Australian film. And if you don't know the Australian film we're talking about, we will tell it to you. It is Bring Her Back. And this film was made by those who made Talk to Me, which last year, did it come out last year or the year before? I think it was last year.
It might have been the year before. I know they wrote them about the same time. But yeah.
So I think it was last year. It might have been the year before. But Talk to Me was a surprise. Obviously, it's A24, so you never know what you're going to get. But it was legitimately probably one of the best scary movies I've seen in a really long time. And so because of that, I was super excited for Bring Her Back. I had no idea that was coming around. And the only reason why I wanted to see it is because I knew that it was filmed by the
Filippo brothers.
Filippo brothers. And I mean, I feel like it didn't disappoint.
Stetson is becoming a huge fan of the horror genre. And we were talking about it after the movie, but we weren't completely sure that this was in the horror genre. Mm-hmm. In doing a little bit of research since, I've found that there's a subgenre within horror, or as my Australian friends would say, horror. It's called grief horror. And so this is what's called grief horror because all of it, you know, everybody's motivations are built around the grief. Mm-hmm. And so that's what is, I guess, it's grief horror.
With that, I was reading a few things about this film before the podcast. And one of the things that I talked about is that the brothers had a death in their family a little while ago. And this film was kind of part of their grieving process. Mm-hmm. I don't know if the death involved like drowning or if it involved something similar to like what happened in the film. But that was what was said is that this film was kind of therapeutic for them to go through.
Interesting. So I heard another story that the Filippo brothers were telling about this movie in reference to the funeral scene where Laura knows that Andy is struggling with the funeral and he doesn't want to look at his dad dead because that's not how he wants to remember him. He wants to remember him alive. But she kind of makes him go and look, and then she makes him kiss him on the forehead. She says it's a tradition. The Filippo brothers apparently went to their grandfather's funeral and had a similar experience in not wanting to look at the body. I guess, and I've experienced this as well. Like I burst into tears anytime that I'm at a funeral and see the dead body. Like, doesn't matter who it is. If I had any connection to him, it's just an immediate reaction. But these guys like didn't want to look at their grandfather, and people were trying to pressure them and stuff. And then in reference to the kiss, I guess they went to another funeral, and it was a Greek Orthodox funeral where it is a tradition to kiss them on the forehead.
Wow.
You don't have to, but it's a tradition, and nobody is making you kiss them on the lips.
Yeah, that was weird. But Laura, the character in this film, does a really, really good job being this grieved mother, and not only grieved, but to the point where she has made herself go insane, chasing the idea of resurrecting her dead daughter. And it's an interesting thought process of the idea of how far will you go to get your loved one back, even along the lines of being willing to kill others to bring life back to the one that you love. And in that same thread, is that something that you think, like, you don't think about it a lot, but would you trade a life for a life? Idea is, or would you look at it as there's no life that's more valuable than the other?
Yeah, that is an interesting idea. Something in this film, particularly that I think makes it a much easier thing to answer is that in this situation, it actually takes two lives to bring one life back. And so,
well, we don't really know what happens to the possessed, because the kid goes back to himself after the end, at the end, and so we don't really know if the possession is
kills them, or
if it kills them, or if it's just a transitionary thing. One thought that I just had is a lot of time parents are like, oh, I would die for my kid. I would do whatever. And so in that same idea, like, she wants to live with her daughter, obviously, but she also wants her daughter to live. So what if you were the one that just said, okay, I will die the same way my daughter died and allow her spirit to be put into my body?
I kind of thought that that's where it was going to end up. I had a couple different ideas of how it was going to end, and it didn't end the way that I thought it would. But one of them was that she was going to sacrifice herself so that her daughter could come back. And then the other idea that I had was she ended up drowning Andy, so he did die in the same manner as her daughter. And I thought that it was going to be a whole mix up where, she ends up killing, what is her name? Piper.
Piper.
Yeah. She ends up drowning Piper, and then Andy goes into Piper and then just messes Laura up.
I thought with Laura, it was interesting, especially at the very end, where she doesn't kill Piper. She doesn't drown her.
Yeah.
Like, she realizes Piper's a person too, and I'm not capable of killing this person. And I think that just comes around to the idea that Laura really isn't a bad person.
Yeah.
She was actually like a very good person before, she decided to find these cult videos and
It's not a cult.
and try and resurrect her dead daughter. But there was like a lot of cues around that. You could see that she, had a job before that involved being a counselor and childcare, making kids have homes.
She was such a good person that her ex-coworker like it wasn't even a question, you know, these things could not possibly come. The stories that Andy was telling, I've known her for 20 years. There's no way she would do that, which kind of leads you to question all of your interactions with anybody you've known for less than 20 years.
Yeah.
It's not been 20 yet.
You never know what people are capable of. You just never know.
You never know.
But this movie was shot really, really beautifully. Like, and that's what I thought the difference between Talk to Me and Bring Her Back, in my opinion, is that Talk to Me was way more story driven. And it really encapsulated what it felt like to be a teenager and jumping into a trend that was just like fun with your friends in the basement type deal, you know, and it just getting out of hand. Like it just felt so real around this changing, you know, people. The one thing about these brothers too is that they have no problem just destroying children.
Yeah.
And Talk to Me, your brother just slamming his head on the ground and like stabbing himself and things. And this one, you have little baby Oliver just taking a knife to the face and
Just
all these
munching on that knife.
all these different things, really uncomfortable. But the artistry behind this film, I thought, was a level above Talk to Me for sure.
And taking it one step further, that scene specifically that you just mentioned with the knife, the Filippo brothers, I was listening to an interview with them, and one of them mentioned that they just couldn't recreate the sound of teeth on a knife. So one of those guys actually took a knife and chomped on it with their teeth to make the sound. So when we're hearing that sound in the movie, it's their teeth.
It sounded real, like for sure. I thought that in the movie where I was like, oh, that sounds so freaking
and
like
it
authentic.
looked crazy.
Yeah. It just looked like he was like just sawing like his teeth in the middle of, oh man.
Yeah.
Wild. Yeah, I was kind of at odds in the film too, where I liked it. I liked the artistry. I liked the color. I liked the shot. I like all the scenes. I like the shots. I like the dynamic relationships that were happening between the characters. But I wasn't having fun.
Yeah.
You know, that was throwing me off. Is it was so stuck in these four characters and so serious kind of the entire time.
Yeah.
There wasn't any part of it to have fun. And I feel like that's the only part of this film that is missing to make it something to where you want to watch it again. Because it was good, but at the same time, I don't feel the need to like dive into it one more time. Where Talk to Me, it's fun. Like there's aspects of it that you want to experience again, even though it has the dark side. It gets
rough. Yeah. So it's funny because, you know, we walked out of the movie theater and I was kind of in the same vein as you, where I felt like Talk to Me was the stronger movie of the two. And Talk to Me was, I mean, it's definitely more fun. That is not even a competition. But as I've been thinking about it longer and longer, Talk to Me didn't really stay with me as much as this one has. I just like, it was darker in a way that felt more real to me.
See, I feel the opposite, where with Talk to Me, I went home and slept with the lights on.
Yeah.
You know, like I thought about that movie for a while, because to me, that felt way more real of some kids getting high on a possession and then it going farther and farther and farther, you know, to where people are dying.
Yeah.
That to me felt like a real thing that could happen. And this definitely it had realness to it, because there was a lot of grief and there was dynamics outside of the horror part of it. But the sticking factor of it, there wasn't a scariness to it. You know, it was hard to watch.
Yeah.
You know, it was violent, it was gory, but I wasn't scared at all. Like I knew what was going to happen from piece to piece. There was a storyline and there was a process. And that was one other aspect of the movie that I think could have been tightened up is once we understood the process, it just felt like
it drug a little bit.
It drug on a little bit more. Like,
because we understand it now. You just need to get to it.
Either make the process, make the reveal later on in the movie to where it's kind of the very last thing that we experience. And then we're like, oh, wow, that's what she's trying to do.
Yeah.
Or push everything else a little bit faster. That's the only thing that I felt could have really been tightened up a tiny bit. But
so the only reason I think that this one felt not necessarily scarier, but more real to me was, I guess, in Talk to Me, it was a situation where you're inviting, you have to actively invite this situation.
Mm-hmm.
They could have stopped at any point. They could have never gone back to the hand. But in this situation, it's a situation where you're living your normal life and all of a sudden there's creepy stuff going around and adults are doing it that, like, you're a kid, you have no control. It felt so helpless, both for Andy and Piper.
That's true. Like the aspect that the kids had no control over the situation, but like if you think of any haunted house scenario or Conjuring or anything like that, usually the kids are. Usually
but I'm just
the kids
talking
are
specifically these two movies.
Oh,
where Talk to Me, they've actively chosen this situation, and this one, it's just the situation you find yourself in.
Yeah. I mean, with Talk to Me, there is a layer of grief with it too, because, she's trying to communicate with her mom.
Right.
And that's an interesting vein that these guys, go into, where are they, was Talk to Me a grief horror as well, or was it just a horror?
I think it is. They've been talking about how it's not necessarily like an up and coming genre, but it's gaining traction right now. So yeah.
The gaslighting in this film is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And the reveals of the gaslighting I thought was really, really good. Because you don't see it you kind of are gaslit at the beginning as well.
Yeah.
Where he wakes up and he's like, oh crap, I peed myself.
Drooling everywhere. I peed myself.
Yeah. And you thought that was weird when you see it, but you're just like, I guess it happens.
Right. Like you're in a completely different situation, real stressful. You're a teenager. Maybe it happens.
Yeah. And then when she goes and pees in the bucket, you're like, what the freak is she doing?
Dude, I got two things to say about peeing in the bucket. Or it's not even a bucket. It's like a measuring cup thing. Two things. One, incredible aim. I'm not sure I could do better. I mean, not a drop was spilled. There was nothing
she put
wasted.
She put a towel down just in case.
She was that good though. Nothing wasted. And two, using your own pee to make somebody think that they peed themselves, absolutely
not
diabolical.
Just using water.
So crazy.
You have to use it for the smell.
The smell. Yeah. I mean, absolutely diabolical.
She went wild. And her whole plan was to try and not have him there, you know, obviously.
Yeah.
Do you, she probably would have went through with the whole thing if he wasn't there.
Maybe. My one thing about her, so she killed two people. Well, she mostly killed two people with a car. That's a pretty easy thing to do. People do that on accident all the time, you know? What you don't do on accident is drown somebody, you know, like physically drown somebody, because it's a lot harder than you think. It takes longer than you think. And I think that, you know, killing somebody with her car, that was pretty easy. She could like disassociate well enough, but once she's there and it's a girl that she actually likes and that she's bonded with and that she does look at as a daughter, it's pretty tough to go through with it.
Well, I think it wasn't even her drowning Piper that was tough. I think it was, she was thinking, I'm drowning my daughter.
Yeah.
Because that's how her daughter drowned. And then her daughter's about to go into this body. Yeah. And so in her mind, she's already Kathy.
There is the connection there. Yeah.
In her mind, she is Kathy and she has replaced her daughter already. She already loves her like her daughter.
Yeah.
And so that I think that's why she couldn't drown her. Not because it was just hard to kill her, but I think it was because it was her daughter.
Well, and I think that I've been listening to a lot of serial killer podcasts, and I can't remember which serial killer it was, but it might have been Henry Lee Lucas, maybe. Don't quote me on this, but he was talking about how much harder it is to strangle somebody than he thought. Like the first time he did it, he's like, it takes like 3 to 5 minutes. You don't understand how hard that is to sit there holding somebody down for 3 to 5 minutes
while they're struggling.
Yeah.
That'd be crazy.
So, but then like you're also connected. Like they were looking at each other as she's trying to drown her. I don't like, especially if you've never killed anybody.
She's blind.
One person was looking at the other person, couldn't see, but her face was also but yeah, I think that there's that connection of when you're physically doing it versus, using a gun or, something like that, which guns are illegal in Australia. That's why there's no guns in any of these movies.
Oh. For some reason, I thought like hunting rifles and stuff were still legal.
You have to like check them out, I think.
Oh, like to go hunt.
Yeah. Or you can have them. There's like a bunch of regulations on it. And yeah, there's a whole, but handguns specifically are out and you can't have anything with like multiple rounds.
Crazy.
Yeah. So
Australia.
Yeah. Crazy. They had one mass shooting and they said, we're done with this. And they haven't had any mass shootings since. Knife attacks though. Lots of knife attacks.
Yeah.
Anyways, interesting movie.
Yeah, I think it was really artistic. I really liked most everything around this movie. And I saw myself throughout the whole movie just appreciating the effort that went into like whether it was the lighting or the acting. Laura had some crazy dynamic like turnarounds, from being a sweet loving mom to being a crazy mother that's trying to get her daughter back to freaking killing herself in the pool with her daughter at the end.
I think she was still alive.
No, she because she had a bite in her arm.
Oh yeah, she like
hit her,
ripped it out, didn't she?
Yeah, she cut her artery so that she would bleed out.
Everybody, like you said, everybody did a great job in the movie. Laura was amazing. Andy was great. And Piper was great. Like all of them were super good. Mm-hmm. Piper apparently has never acted before.
Mm-hmm. And she's actually is blind.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She's visually impaired. I don't know, fully blind or like in the movie, but then Andy, I thought the whole time, I'm like, this guy looks familiar. Mm-hmm. And I kept racking my brain and I didn't know who he was until I looked right before we came in to record. He's Craven the Hunter's little brother.
Oh, really?
Young Dimitri.
Wow.
Yeah. So
interesting. He was this close to being in Craven, probably.
Oh, he was in Craven.
Oh, he was?
Yeah.
Oh, he's not the actor's little brother. He's Craven the Hunter, the character's little brother.
Yeah. Oh. Young Dimitri. Yeah,
I see. At the very beginning of the film, where they have the aperture changes, I picked that up super quick because it was just so blown out. It was like, man, they have to be doing that on purpose. Like they have to be focusing, and then when the girls were talking and you couldn't see the girls, they were all blown out. I was like, oh,
yeah,
we're experiencing what she experienced. We're experiencing, how she sees the world,
which was cool. Yeah, that was a cool effect. And I don't feel like they overused it. Like
Well, it was only the
sometimes
first like 15 minutes or something.
there were a few other scenes throughout the movie. You know, when she touches Oliver's head, and then also Andy told her to go grab something. So she like ran to the kitchen and was running back, and it was like really blown out and fuzzy and stuff.
Yeah. There's a lot of scenes in this that stick with you for sure. I mean, hard scenes hard, but good, you know, like them walking and seeing their dad.
Yeah.
And then, Piper not understanding their
Piper.
like she can't see him, you know, so she doesn't understand like everything that's going on.
Right.
Andy should have done something about that for sure. But
I mean, yeah, he was a kid and he was in the same moment. So
yeah, I don't like with their dad and how their dad died. I couldn't tell if he died from an overdose or he was killed by Laura or like something like that. I had that thought at one point by the way that he died, that maybe Laura had seen
she like
Piper
planned this whole thing
and was
for
like,
a long time.
She's just like my daughter. I need to like get her. And so she kills the dad so that then they're looking for foster parents. And
that would be pretty crazy. I don't buy into it just because I feel like the first time she actually killed somebody, it was with the car.
I mean, she kidnaps a kid. But it's just too perfect. How did it just end up? And she leaves right at the right time, leaves her job right at the right time. There's just so many things that are piling on top of each other where I'm just like, she killed their dad.
Synchronicities. Well, they talked about him having just having just finished his last round of chemo. So my impression of it was just that he was still sick, you know? I mean, he was foaming from the mouth.
He looked poisoned.
Yeah, it didn't look good.
It looked poisoned to me.
Yeah. But anyways,
We'll see.
don't know.
We got to ask. We got to find out.
Danny and Michael. Anyway, should we get into the final pop?
Yep. Let's do it.
Okay.
So like I said, as you guys probably know at this point, I like this one. I thought it was really good. I thought there's a lot of things to like. I'm going to give this a 4.3.
Wow.
4.3.
That's a pretty good rating for Stetson.
I think that Talk to Me was better. I think Talk to Me would have been, if we were rating at the time, would have been in like the 4.5s, 4.6s. This is just a little bit less than me just because of I just wish there was a little bit of fun in this one. I just wish there was something like maybe Andy could have been a little bit funny, you know, or had something that just made you laugh here and there.
I do feel like Laura was a little bit fun at first.
She had moments, but at the same time, you didn't want to laugh.
Yeah.
You know,
because you saw what was going on behind the,
Yeah. But 4.3.
4.3, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Initially, the night that we saw it, I was thinking a 3.5 to a 4. The more that I've thought about it, I'm actually going to give it a 4.2. And I thought that before you said 4.3.
Okay, yeah, right, dude. Yeah.
And once again, we've proven Stetson is more of a horror fan than I am. But yeah, like you said, you know, all the performances were great. Laura was crazy in all of the right ways, you know, to make you uncomfortable. It was pretty smart the way that they laid everything out as far as like her setting everything up and the way that everything unveiled, you know. Oliver was straight out of a nightmare. Like, what?
Wild kid. As you were talking, I couldn't help but think about just the first freaking 45 seconds of this movie.
Yeah.
It makes you think, are we in the right movie?
I forgot what movie we were at when that started playing. I was like, what are we seeing?
Yeah. You're like, Is this a whole different type of movie?
Did we come to see Blair Witch 3 or something?
Yeah.
Or Sinister or something like that?
I did not. I thought we were going into like another trailer or something. I was like, this has to be a trailer for something else.
Yeah. Yeah, that it really set the tone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is going to be weird.
All right. Well, let us know what you think. Obviously, if this area right here is anything but green, then our green screen worked. If it is green, just deal with it.
We're still ironing things out.
Literally and figuratively. Yeah. So we're trying it out. We'll see if if there's something there, then it worked. If there isn't, then we planned it to be green.
Green.
All right. We'll see you in the next one. There's a lot of films to freaking see right now. So we don't know what will be next, but excited to do.
Let us know. Let us know what you're excited to see. Let us know